Hi everyone, it's Sam from Sitemate. In this video, we're going to look at a fairly simple formula that you can use to count the number of table rows in a table field to track using a quantity chart. So in the example in this video, we're going to look at setting up a template for an inspection, and we're going to create a table for tracking the number of defects, and then we're going to build a chart that can then track that and give us some insight into the status of each of those defects inside of that table. So let's go ahead and set up a template. We will create our own, and let's call it weekly inspection. Give it an ID, which might be sitemate-inspection-01. Give it a name, all the usual stuff, and click next. Now, once we're in the builder, we're going to want to add in a date field, and you might have several sections for summarising the inspection. You might have a section for photos and a signature at the bottom. In this video, we're going to concentrate purely on the table, which we'll then use to track using the analytics the number of rows in this table. So we're going to make sure that this table is set up to be a default table, and we're going to call it defects, and we're going to add an extra column. And for each defect, we're going to have a description, we're going to have a photo, we're going to have a status, and a count. And so the description can just be text. The photo, we'll need to use the photo field option for this cell. For the status, we're going to use the list option, and we're going to manually type in the list. In this case, it's just going to be open or closed. Pretty simple. And then for count, we're going to use the formula cell option. And the formula, it's very simple. It's just going to be equals 1. And so what this is going to do is every time we add a new row into this table, this column is going to populate the number 1. And then that's what we're going to use to track using the analytics. So let's go ahead and build some examples. Our template's now ready. Let's click on that. And let's fill out a new form. Punch in the date. And let's put in a couple of examples. Cracked concrete, scratched beam. And so, of course, you'll be able to add in as many photos as you want. But for the status, I'm going to make these ones open. And you'll see that the count column automatically populates the number 1 every time we add a row. So you can see as many rows as we want. Now, I'm not going to populate all of the examples, but I'm just going to show you that if we have 4 rows in here and we mark the status is going to be important for when we get to the chart, because you'll be able to break down by this status. But because we have 4 rows, the analytics is going to show us that there were 4 defects in this form on this date. So I'm going to save that form in here, and I'm going to duplicate this just a couple of times to get some example content, and we'll continue this video once I've done that. Okay, so I've cloned the form a couple of times just so that we have some dummy data, and I'll show you in the register view that we have 5 forms, and each of the forms has a few rows. And what our analytics is going to do is it's going to count this number here. So on this particular date, it's going to allocate 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. On this date, it's going to allocate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and so on and so forth. And it's going to know for each of these rows what the status is. And this is going to be super useful when we go and build our chart. So let's go and do that now. Let's go to Analytics and create a dashboard. I'm just going to call it Quality. And in the Quality dashboard, we're going to create a chart for our defects. So let's create a chart, and we're going to call it defects. And down here, we need to specify the source of our data. So it's going to come from our weekly inspection template, from the defects table, and the column that we want to count or reference is the count column. So it's populated that for us. And we want to look at all the data that we've plugged in. So we had 5 forms, so hence we've got 5 bars, and they were all recorded on different dates. So you can imagine that these were the dates that those inspections were carried out on. We're displaying the information daily, but we could do weekly if we wanted to. And we're showing everything as a bar chart, which is just fine. But then we get to this setting here, breakdown by, and this is where we can then say, okay, well, let's look at what the status of each of those rows was. So if we select status, you see that now it breaks it down between the defects that are open and the defects that are closed. And so we can see that there were 3 that are closed here, and there's 1 that's open. On this day, they're all closed, and there was 4. On this day, there's still 2 that are open. And so you get this visual sort of breakdown on each of the inspections when they were carried out, and the breakdown of which defects were open and which were closed, which is much easier than trawling through a register or opening up each form that you have in the template section. This is a very handy way of visualizing all of that information. So that concludes this video, and I hope it's been super handy. We do have some other resources that run through other formulas that you can use and the other chart types that are available, so feel free to check those out. You can always contact our team via live chat, either via the website or in the mobile app. And as always, thanks for watching.